Yes, so we're happy to announce another new release of Valo Intranet. So this webinar is about this new release, what it's about, what it includes, and also how to go about installing the release both to new customers and existing ones. So yeah, as I said, I'm here with product specialist Sari Siekkinen, and most of you know both of us already. Here's the agenda. We have roughly 1 hour booked for this webinar. First, we will talk about what's new in this release, then how to install the release and how to update from previous versions. Then we will have a brief look at our future roadmap, and then also time for questions and answers. Technically, as always, just feel free to type in your questions into the chat window of the Skype session, so we will pick your questions up from there. What else? I guess that's it. So let's just get started. I hope everybody can hear us, but nobody has said anything, so I guess it's still working. So what's new in this release? Main focus is stabilization. So once or twice every year, we, instead of just working on new features to this product, we focus on stabilizing the product and making it like improving the core features and fixing the bugs and minor improvements that we have on the backlog. So there's a release notes document as always, and we have published it in the partner portal. I will just show you briefly where it is. Here, so everybody knows the partner portal. One way to get into the release notes is by clicking on right here, product documents, and we have always the latest release highlighted. We've also got the previous releases just in case you need access to those documents, but the current release is 1.13, so it's highlighted like this, and the documents of this release are all here. So the release notes are here, and it's about these fresh release notes. There's also a little bit more like raw and like tech-oriented release notes, but this fresh release notes document is the one that you can also send over to your customers and review together with them. So let's just have a brief look at the document so we'll see its structure and what it includes. So just like before, the release notes and the contents are divided to these add-ons of Valo. So for a customer that, let's say, doesn't have the latest video web part, they can just skip this part, okay? And then we have these orange boxes here that always define for each new feature or fix or modification what exactly is needed in order to get this release and to get this feature installed. So yeah, as I said, a very long list of bug fixes and improvements. But that's not all. There's also a couple of new really exciting features in this release. One of them is the mobile app branding. And then there's also SharePoint Framework web parts. So let's have a look at the mobile app branding, what it is. It means that you can brand your customer's Valo mobile app. You can modify two header colors and the logo. What you cannot do is change the name of the app or the logo or anything in the App Store. So in the App Store, the users always have to search with the word Valo Intranet, and they get the Valo logo and they install it like that. And also how it appears before the login, I think that's also predefined by us. But after login, it gets the styles from the SharePoint Intranet. So this is how it looks like by default. So it has the Valo logo and it has our colors, but you can brand it to for instance, something like this. So here the customer has applied their logo and has modified a couple of colors. Or this is the way the news listing looks. So you can see the blue top bar there and the logo. And so when you modify it with the style editor, you can get something like this. So you change the top bar color to something else, and you change the logo. How that is done and how that can be done per customer, let's look at the style editor. So here I'm in our development environment, and with the newest installation package you can do exactly the same. So this is a style editor that most of you know already. This is the tool for modifying the colors and styles for your customers' intranet. So here when I open it, the rest of it is as before, but by clicking on the toggle advanced editor and then scrolling below, here's a new section, Valo Mobile Editor. So this is a place where you define those two colors, the number one color, and actually it affects not only the blue top bar but also a couple of icons or symbols elsewhere in the UI. So you modify the main color and the what we call the accent color, and then you save the mobile styles. Then the mobile app gets those styles when it loads, and the logo will be whatever you have defined in the SharePoint. So you can also access this change logo from the style editor. You change the logo and then the mobile app gets that logo as well. So that's the mobile app branding. Okay, then there's another exciting feature called SharePoint Framework Web Part or Web Parts. Obviously the SharePoint framework as such is not valuable, but what's valuable here is that the web part configuration will be a lot easier thanks to this feature. So currently, to configure our web parts, for instance for the news listing web part, if you want to define how many items are displayed or what the source is, what the URL is of the news center, or what filtering criteria you need to use, sometimes it's complicated because you need to know the names of the parameter and type it exactly the right way, otherwise it doesn't work. So we've decided to make it look like this. So it's a form that has already all of those fields there available, so you don't have to refer so much to the user manual. What was the parameter? The parameters are already there, so you will just fill them in. And it's also, so it's kind of one web part, and you just select the web part from the first drop down, and that affects the rest of the fields here. So that modifies the fields on the fly. I could also show you this here in the live environment. So you see how it works. So here I am in the dev environment. So if I just go to edit the page, what's interesting here about these web parts and why we have published them, why we're talking about beta phase in this moment, is that you have to manually enable these web parts to all of the sub-sites where you want to use it, and that's a pity, but there's nothing we can do about that because that is something that Microsoft needs to enable. Okay, anyway, so now I have done that enabling already, meaning I went to site contents and I clicked on add an app there, and thanks to that, now when I go to add a web part and I go to the Valo category here, I see one new web part. So it's just one web part called Valo web part, and when I add it by managing that one, oops, now I think I added it somewhere funny, meaning up here. Well, it doesn't matter, I can show it from here as well. So as you can see, this is the web part, and you don't have this edit snippet button at all anymore because we've gotten rid of this XML configuration. So you go to edit web part, so you get this familiar web part modification panel like this. Well, you have to click configure once again, but this is where it all starts. So here in this drop down you choose the web part type. for instance dev blogs, and here you have the configuration parameters for that particular web part type. Or for the news, I think for the news and events this is especially nice because there are so many parameters. You have no way of remembering all of them, but now that they're all here, for instance the enable user filter, this means that we would be filtering the news per user parameter, so it's just about clicking here and now it's turned on. Now why this on-off switch looks funny like this, have to say I don't know. I'm using Google Chrome, we have to check that out. Obviously the UI of these buttons and these controls is not made by us. Anyway, main thing is that it works. So, and we have all the switches here that you used to have in the XML configuration, such as hide the categories from the news listing and all of that. There's also a nice in context user instructions here. So by clicking on this I, you get per web part a little bit explanation about what these parameters are. And this also changes per web part type. So let's say we have the Our People web part here. It has fewer parameters as we can see, and then it's explained here by clicking on that letter I. Okay, so that's what the SharePoint framework web parts are. And as I said, we consider this as beta because it's not like we cannot enable them by default in all installations. You need to do those manual steps to have them working. For instance, right now I'm here in the HR subsite, and probably this subsite does not have those new web parts enabled yet, so I have to click here add an app manually, and here then I would be seeing it's still loading, but there would appear these Valo web parts or Valo web part right here. So I have to do this. I have to click on that, and then it adds it, and then I wait a couple of minutes, and then I can start using those web parts in this particular subsite. So now it's there, and now it's ready to use. So there are separate installation, a very small installation document to enable this if you want to try it out in your environment. Sari will talk about that in more detail. But the main point here is that this is not something we're yet able to enable in all of the future installations. Another thing to maybe point out here is that this is not, even though it's SharePoint framework, it doesn't yet mean that these web parts are that you can install them into these so-called modern pages. In order to make that work, we are already working on that, but we need a couple of more steps in order to do that. So what should you do with this new release? Obviously we recommend, because it's such a good release and full of really important improvements, you should obviously use it in every new installation you do from now on. So wherever you go and install a new version of Valo, do a new installation of Valo, always take these installation packages and not any of these previous ones. So if you have any hard-coded links to these 1.12 packages, please refresh your links and get the new packages from the partner portal. And also because so many of you partners already have existing customers using Valo Intranet, and most of them have this so-called fresh subscription, which means that they have this annual subscription and they have the access and the right to use new versions of Valo. What has worked very well for us is that we set up a meeting whenever a new release comes out. We set up a meeting and we discuss this new release with the customer, and we explain to them what it means to them. And you could already you should read these release notes and read through the list of bugs, so that you can point out those fixes that are important to your customers. Because also it's what's a fact is also that there's no mechanism for skipping this release. So if a customer for some reason says we don't want this release, then afterwards they cannot. If they want the next release 1.14, then they have to also install this release and then the next one.